It is nighttime outside, but we all hear a baby crying. The man in the house, surrounded by all sorts of gadgets, cannot understand where such a sound comes from. A crying baby. He takes his axe from the wall and decides to check it, thinking that a rat might have gotten inside. He wants to investigate because he suspects that someone has come for a reason, but to come and clean his house. He intends to be serious, for the man is a hunter. He also thought that someone who had avoided all the traps around his house and hidden his presence must surely not be an ordinary creature or a human being. But it is not so easy to fool a hunter's ears. He would be in contact with the beast so quickly that it would not even have time to attack him. As soon as the hunter rushed into his barn with his axe in hand, he saw no one. He thought he had made a mistake. He even considered the possibility that he had gone a little crazy with the news that he and his wife could not have a baby. Was that not why he was imagining things? But when he looked ahead, he noticed that there was a small child in the haystack. The hunter was very surprised and immediately held the child. He could not believe it. He was so happy he had enjoyed the moment so much that he had not even noticed when his wife walked in. She asked her husband, Vincent, what had happened to disturb her in the middle of the night. He asked his wife what had happened, that his dear Alina had woken up. She immediately went to him and asked what he had in his arms. Was it really a baby? Vincent didn't know what to answer. He ran from side to side, not understanding what was going on. But he came to his senses and decided to say that it must have been his and his wife's baby. What we have before our eyes is the story that, on that day, something very much like magic happened. After he had opened his eyes and waved his hands, the wind blew from somewhere, and the clouds began to gather. Soon, it began to rain, and then a sparkle poured out onto the completely dry land. The villagers sang a song of happiness. It was he who protected the village from danger, and it was thanks to him and his mystical power that the village found peace and tranquility. No longer thirsty for water or gold, but that man could not stop learning. The villagers and people thought his ability was mystical and called him a magician. We are again transported to the present, where our hero is asked what he is doing. Is he reading a book in front of our face? We see our little white-haired boy, whose name is Aaron Cheyenne, who recently turned 12 years old. Then we see his aging father, Arian Vincent, who had long since turned 30. He was glad his son had finished with the trees so quickly, so he wanted to go home to eat with him. He whirled him around as if he was playing for the last time. Our hero asked his father what he had to do to create magic at home. Vincent was puzzled when he heard that. Did he really bring such a book to his son? But Vincent decided to ask his son questions too. What is magic really? Magic can also be called something that can defeat a bear with one arrow, or tear down a tree with one blow of the axe. He asked if this was magic. Father and son were walking along the road when they were met by children. They wondered why our hero stayed at home all day reading books instead of going for a walk with them. They wondered if he really knew how to read and why he had brought such a thick book. They even said that our hero did not look like his father because he was very frail, and they thought that he had been picked up and that his old parents had abandoned him. Cheyenne found all this very strange. All this was heard by Vincent, who certainly didn't like it. He was very angry because how could some little kids dare to call his son names? But after looking at his son, who was burning with happiness, just saying that such opportunities in magic are simply a miracle because you can bring down a tree with one blow, Vincent immediately calmed down. He told our hero that, as he had helped him, tomorrow they would go to the city together and buy a lot of his favorite fruits. Our hero was happy, but Vincent wondered why he was such a good-for-nothing father. He knew, however, that no one could say that our hero was not his real son. But our hero dreamed of one thing: learning magic. Our heroes had already driven in a cart to a town in the province of Toria Creus. Our hero was very happy because he saw the city for the first time. He had seen all the shop windows and the merry people. They were buying clothes, eating, and laughing. But his father distracted him and told him that he had to wait for him at Grandpa Martin's store. Until he had finished his business, he must not move from his seat. He had said this to our hero just in case, as he must not go to the back lanes or meet aristocrats. Vincent understood that our hero had always obeyed him, but he still needed to be worried in a city like this. Vincent left on the bandwagon, and our hero remained behind to write the prices of the fruit on the signs. His grandfather praised him, saying that he had written very well. He also expressed his gratitude, as it was very difficult for Grandpa to work alone these days. Our hero was very happy to have such company, so he said that he was glad to help. Grandpa was looking at him and could not help but admire, because our hero was indeed very smart. But his grandson Martin does nothing but get into trouble. Then our hero asked his grandfather if he knew anything about magic, but Grandpa did not answer him. Thinking that our hero had offered him something to eat, Grandpa laughed, and our hero tried to explain what he wanted. Our hero shouted and asked what he had to do to use magic. Grandpa understood what our hero wanted, but he knew almost nothing about magic. However, pointing to the alley, he said that in one of the stores there were a lot of books about magic. Grandpa asked if he wanted to go, as there were many books to look at. Our hero didn't even ask permission and ran to the store. He said that he wouldn't be there long and would be back soon. Grandpa had taken the book from our hero's hands and was about to open it. He liked to read them and remembered them very much. He opened the book but saw only some scribbles. He immediately took the words of our hero seriously because he had just mentioned that he needed to learn how to use magic. Our hero had already thought that he would be able to touch books with his hands because he was in a store, but the saleswoman told him not to do it. He asked if he could at least have a look at them, but the woman cried out, saying that such books were not for common people, and she didn't think they were the same as the practical books sold in the habashi. She asked our hero what he would do if he left his handprints on the book. Would he really buy it? Our hero began to get very nervous. He didn't think such books were very expensive, and he asked himself where his father got such books. At that moment, a strange man in a hat came into the store. He asked if all the books he had ordered had arrived. The saleswoman asked if it was the chief butler. She knew it was him, so he asked how he could get them. Our hero was trying to leaf through what he had in his hands as quickly as possible, but ironically, he couldn't find anything. Our hero had already left the store and could not understand whether it was possible to find a book to read at all. Our hero was in the street when he noticed that a man was carrying books. He asked himself where the man was carrying them. While our hero was running after this aristocrat, he noticed that the man had just thrown them in the trash. There were a lot of books, so our hero understood where his father had gotten all those books from in their house. He was very upset and looked at the people behind him. He knew it was to know, but how was it any different from them? Our hero remembered what his father had said, that he should not go out with them. But why did he say that? Our hero was following the women when a man took him by the shoulders and told him that this was not the place where he could go alone. He said that behind this gate was the territory of aristocrats. He asked where our hero's parents were. Our hero hesitated but said that they were not far away. Just then, other people began to come and asked if it was not that our hero had gone there at all. Everybody thought that he was not from around here. They even made a hypothesis that our hero was an orphan raised by bandits. They wanted to take him with them to somewhere, but our hero had already vanished. These watchers began to shout and asked to find our hero. They thought that it was very bad. Our hero had hidden in a flower bed. He always checked if the watchers had gone. He was very frightened and even noticed that his boot had gone very far away. But while he was bending down to get the boot, he heard a conversation about magic. Our hero was very interested because it was very important for him. He heard someone talking to the principal. He had looked at the walls and realized that this was most likely the school of magic. He had heard that pupils were trying to name the most powerful thing in magic. Knowledge had been named, and also efforts had been made, but nothing had been counted. Our hero also wondered what it could be if it was not knowledge or effort. Was it really necessary to become an aristocrat? Then, the teacher said that the most important thing in learning magic is discernment. Everyone wondered what insight was. But the teacher said that it is a strange feeling when one knows something but does not know how to explain it. That is clairvoyance. Many scientists have proven this, but don't people understand that 1 equals 2, even without a complex proof? It is a rule that has existed in the world for a very long time. They not only memorize it, but feel it and fully accept the concept. Magic, as well as this thing, has existed in the world since its beginning, so that is why they can experience it fully with insight. The teacher said exactly what our hero had been stuck on in his mind for a very long time. He said that clairvoyance is more accurate than knowledge and faster than effort. Our hero, hearing this, thought that this was incredibly genius. The teacher had also thought, in fact, that if they improved their skills, they could become wizards as well. When our hero heard the words "become a magician," he thought, will he get such a chance? But at that moment, the teacher talked to our hero because he wanted to know what the child. Standing behind the wall, our hero was very afraid and surprised. He thought, what should I do? Should I run away or respond? After all, he was really in a slovenly state and no one knew what could happen. But the thought crossed his mind that if he didn't get through this wall now, it seemed for sure he would regret it for his whole life. He began to climb the wall and could see an incredibly beautiful area with children sitting near the tree and the teacher. The old man, who was the headmaster of the School of Magic, appeared in front of them. His name was Myrtilas, and he was a state mage of the 4th rank. Our hero liked him for sure, so he climbed over the fence completely. He timidly began to approach everyone because he did not know what to expect from them. The children began to shout that our hero was a commoner, not an aristocrat. They shouted that he should not come near, and he was forbidden to enter their territory at all. But the old man said that our hero should approach. He even asked what had made our hero show such a big interest. Our hero was a little hesitant, but still said that he would like to see some magic. The old man was surprised. How is it possible that you have never seen magic in your life? He asked. Our hero stood there shyly. In fact, he had only read about magic in a book. The children began to shout that our hero, as a commoner, could read books. Our hero bowed and said that it didn't matter what magic it was, but he wanted to see something. The old man said that there was nothing difficult, so he would show some magic. All the pupils began to look at the simple man, who was our hero, and at the old man, who had already lifted his hands up. Our hero was thinking how the wind could be magic, but at that very moment, all the pupils rose into the air. Everybody was having a very good time, but only our hero was afraid he was going to fall down. He cried out in fear and closed his eyes. When he opened his eyes, he saw that he was surrounded by pupils who had already returned to the ground. They were having fun, looking at our hero. The old man, with a kind smile on his face, asked how our hero liked magic. Did he like it? Our hero understood that this is what it means to use magic. The old man even decided to explain what it was. He wanted to compare magic to something, but our hero started to shout and demand that the principal tell the truth. All the pupils were shocked that our hero had treated the principal like this, and even shouted at him, as even teachers cannot talk to him like this. But the headmaster looked at our hero and decided to smile. He said that he would explain everything in a different way, so it would be more difficult for our hero to understand. He said that magic is the same as the action of leaving the common sense of everything. To put it in reverse, it is the effect on the consciousness, exploring the truth of phenomena. The old man was about to say that everything was much easier, but our hero said something that others could not have expected. He said, in this case, magic is not a well-known phenomenon, but maybe that's why it is close to the truth. The old man was delighted and asked if that was also written in books. Our hero answered that it wasn't written in the books, but he could only underline the general features, though at the beginning, many ideas of great men were criticized and appeared as mad, but finally they were recognized as sane. Our hero even thought that maybe the truth was hidden somewhere, but certainly not in their common sense. The old man was pleased with the answer, even too much. So our hero asked him what he would need to learn to use magic. The old man realized that he was facing a very clever child. He even realized that our hero wanted to get the exact information and explore it, even if it would be very difficult. Does our hero really think he can do it? As sad as it is, the old man knew that our hero was not even an aristocrat. So he said that, instead of a detailed explanation, he would show a practical example. He asked one of his pupils to enter the spirit zone. Our hero was very curious about what the spirit zone was. At that very moment, the girl named Shuan said she had entered the zone. The teacher asked her to see how many coins he had in his hand. Just how many coins were in his hand. Our hero just could not believe how it was possible. So the old man decided to explain that if the magician concentrates, his mind becomes so sensitive that he can feel everything around him. Outstanding magicians can even guess how many leaves are on trees far away. The spirit zone is the highly sensitive state of mind. The wizards who have entered it observe the outside world outside of sensory perception. As a result, they can control phenomena. Our hero understood everything because that girl had not even counted the number of coins. She just felt the situation going on in front of her eyes. Our hero had already wanted to think that he could do it too. So the old man even said that anyone could do it. He asked our hero to practice in a quiet place, but first he would have to feel himself. The old man thought that anyone could do it, but not just anyone. He even said that if he succeeded, a different world would be opened before him. Our hero immediately said, "If no one can do it, then I won't be able to win." The old man liked our hero more and more. Our hero was very interested in whether he could do it. He understood that if he could not enter the spirit zone, then he would definitely be unable to learn magic. Our hero stood in a quiet pose and began to feel everything around him. But he began to wonder, what is me? Is it not the brain? But it definitely wasn't. It was only an organ of the physical body, and the feelings he was experiencing were real, but could not go beyond the concept of the brain. Our hero understood that he was not giving a definition, but felt that he was gradually removing what he felt under the concept of himself. He did not feel what had called him into becoming sensitive, but what remained was only a sensitive spirit. Our hero saw something and then looked at the old man, who asked him what he felt. Our hero said that he heard a sound. All the boys and girls began to laugh because everyone could hear the sound if they just closed their eyes. The old man had already resigned himself to the fact that nothing would work because what happens in the spirit zone has a different dimension of aesthesia. From sound comes smell, from light comes taste, and the scenery touches the skin. These were the comparisons that could be given to aesthesia. The old man came to our hero and started stroking his head, telling him that if he trained hard in the future, he would be able to hear more sounds. The old man left our hero with his group because they had to return to school. However, he still felt pity for our hero because he really had a talent for witchcraft. If he were an aristocrat and had been trained at this school since he was young, most likely he could even reach a higher level than all the children with him. But he understood that there were many talented children in the world, and it wasn't just him. He said he really made it. Our hero heard a sound, which was incredibly loud, but what he listened to was really called the spirit zone. Our hero felt at that moment as if he were divided into small pieces and scattered far away all over the world. Our hero understood that at that moment, he was the entire world. He cried at this, trembling at the greatness of this infinity. Though it was only one moment, he was able to leave the mainland and become infinite. While running down the street and thinking about all this, he bumped into some strange and angry people. They didn't like it much that our hero had bumped into one of them. They took him by the scruff of the neck and wanted to beat him in response to the bump. But at that moment, Someone behind all the people asked what they were doing. When they turned around, they saw a girl named Amy. Our hero looked at her, wondering if she was an aristocrat, but they began to justify themselves by saying that our hero had wanted to kill them, so they wanted to take care of him. Our hero shouted that he had just bumped into him, but of course they started hitting him back. Our hero was lying on the floor, coughing, while the men said that our hero would have to pay them back. They even told him to bring his mother to answer for him. Our hero did not answer, but they started beating him again with their feet and laughing. At that moment, Amy asked everyone to stop and came up to our hero, asking if he was okay. Our hero, still lying there, said that he hadn't done anything, but the girl, Amy, said that it was time to quit fooling around because our hero could be shaken up and then sold to the South Village, and because he was a commoner, there wouldn't be any consequences. Our hero was very afraid and called out for his father. After looking at Amy, who also dreamed of a slave, she was just beside herself with joy. Immediately, the men threw themselves on him, saying that his mistress wanted to see him naked. They began to get closer to him, but at that moment, Amy began to think about the state of our hero. She had just wanted to torture him to some extent and then let him go. Had our hero gone crazy? At this time, our hero was in the spirit zone, but he did not realize it himself. He saw the very tree in front of him near which his teacher had shown him the magic of wind. He understood that now he was seeing the same skill of the wind in his own memories. The bandits were shaking him, but only Amy noticed something was wrong. She asked everybody to leave, but our hero could use wind magic without even knowing it. He looked up, and his offenders were flying, but in a moment, they were already lying on the floor with smashed legs and arms. Amy started running toward our hero and asked him who he was and how he had learned magic in the first place. Many people started running to the place where there was a surge of mana, so Amy immediately left the scene. Our hero turned around and saw the result of his magic. He understood that if people came here, they would certainly not listen to what he had to say. Our hero ran as fast as he could and called his father. But deep in his heart he realized that this world was very cold. Here we see the first-ranked nobles, the Carr's family, and the same Amy, who had told her father that they had been beaten by a boy. He only said she was wounded and that his daughter had most likely skipped her lessons. But she said that everything she had to learn, she had already learned, so she wasn't even having fun. Her father asked her when she would grow up because even if she was a genius, she would still be very carefree. Amy went upstairs, menacingly, but her father's words that one day she would be stabbed in the back made her very sad and thoughtful. She looked at her father at one point and asked if he had any acquaintance at the School of Magic, because if so, she asked him to introduce her to him. But winter had already come, so we saw our hero's house again. His father called him and asked where he was, but his mother said that their son had gone to the woods to cut down trees. He wondered what he was doing there because it hadn't even stopped snowing. He even went into the woods to look for him. As his father walked through the snowy woods, he thought about that spring when he took his son, Shy, to the woods for the first time. He almost lost him because he had been shocked, but it was clear that something was wrong. Our hero stood in front of a tree with his axe in his hands. One could think that he was chopping the tree, but he was thinking about the same magic that he had activated on that fateful day. Our hero simply could not use it afterward because it was the magic in which he excelled. Being unconscious, he could not use his clairvoyance to know what happened in the past, all because he had no knowledge of magic. But he could still enter the spirit zone. Being in this state, our hero could feel absolutely everything around him. Touch, forms, smells. He could know everything at once about every tree he looked at. He saw a strange glow but could not understand what it was yet. He just took the axe and struck the strange glow. He felt it, and when he hit that spot, he realized that he could cut down a tree with one blow. Our hero understood that this was magic, but his father, who was standing behind another tree, could not understand what had happened or what he saw. In fact, what he had just seen was nothing but a thunderstorm. Our hero thought that he had brought the tree down with one of 100 blows, just like with the magic that day. Our hero understood that it was not luck that was needed there, but the exact knowledge of the soul, so that tomorrow and again tomorrow, he would repeat everything without stopping. It would all be for chance, which would one day have to come to him. 3 years later, in the fall, our hero had grown up. He understood that you can't and shouldn't see with your eyes. You have to feel with them. Our hero could cut down trees with one blow. The first time, he almost didn't go home after meditation, even though about 5 hours had already passed. All sensations told our hero that he had become one with nature. He could feel the vibrations of growth, the movement of worms, and the sounds of tree roots absorbing moisture. He could listen to all this very deeply. However, he missed 5 hours. Our hero remembered the old man's words, that if he could do it, he could see another world for sure. Our hero decided to go home on that beautiful note. In front of his house, he found a map with white horses. He wondered if the guests had arrived. When he went home, he saw his parents, who wanted to introduce him to the butler-in-chief of the Owen family. He introduced himself as Teen. Our hero could not understand what an aristocrat of the second level needed. Immediately, Teen began to inspect our hero and ask different questions, such as whether he could read and how old he was. After examining him, Teen concluded that our hero was a very good example because he could read, although this was not necessary for the woodcutter's son, and he was very respectful. So, she asked if our hero would like to work in his family. Our hero wanted to object, but Teen immediately said that they needed a man in the library, one of whose duties would be to prevent the removal of books. This work would go on for 2 years, and the hard work would be done by porters. Our hero and the butler would sort them. Our hero was very hooked by the fact that he would be working in the library, because he believed that in the library, the family would accumulate a lot of high-level knowledge necessary for a magician. But the fact that this work would be known only to the family, with books not being taken out for any reason, and no one should know that they were taken out, was a heavy burden. If it happened, he and his family would die. Our hero understood that most likely his parents had such expressions because this work was putting their lives on the line, even though the pay would be good. Teen even dared to say that such a sum would be very hard to earn, even if someone tried to hunt to the breaking of bones. So, he advised our hero's father to send his son to a better place. But our hero's father said that he listened to Teen only because he wanted our hero to have all his dreams come true. Teen laughed and asked, "Doesn't your father think that our hero will succeed in something? Most likely he gives him to earn money and nothing else." His father objected. It was clear to Teen that our hero could read, but the butler made it clear that he did not believe in our hero's ability to understand everything perfectly. But if he wanted to fulfill his son's dreams, then why had he been lying to him all the time? We see the memories of our hero's father, who recalled the moment when his wife taught our hero a few words just for fun. He remembered that our hero had learned to read at the age of 6, and he had the appearance of an aristocrat, but the most distinctive thing in his life was his clever head. Did the blood of an aristocrat flow in our hero all this time? Our hero's father had a dream that if he grew up in an aristocratic family, he would have succeeded in life. But the thought that their family was only poor, and that the father was an ordinary lumberjack made him fear that his son would have to work with him in the mountains. However, as soon as our hero started to do everything his father did, he got scared because, in the end, he was raising him as the child of a lumberjack. We see that, at one moment, our hero's father fell at the feet of the butler and asked him to hire his son because he could read and was very smart. Vincent immediately said that he had not asked for a single coin and told them to get out of his house because he didn't even know what would happen. Teen adjusted his hat and said that since no one knew his place, there was nothing to be done. But at that moment, our hero raised his voice and said that he would do it. Teen was shocked by this answer, even though Shai's father was against it. He asked our hero if he meant what he said. He wasn't lying. He even repeated that if even one rumor started to circulate, then the head would be lifted from his and his relatives' shoulders. But our hero said that it was all right because he wanted to do it himself, and he knew that nothing would ever get out. If it did, he wouldn't blame anyone else. Teen smiled widely because he surely did not expect such a thing from a commoner like our hero. He said that he would come for him in exactly 1 week. Even if he changed his mind, there would be a chance to refuse. But after arriving at the estate, our hero would know that he would not be able to leave the estate until he finished his work. Vincent yelled and asked our hero why he agreed to do this job. He had thought that the aristocrats only wanted someone who would die for others. He began to apologize because everything had happened because of him, so he would take responsibility and refuse. But our hero started to cry and smile because his father had given him such a big and very dear present. He embraced his father, who was also in tears, but not from joy, rather from horror. But his father soon said that he would take care of their mother because that was his task as head of the family. He asked his son to come back as soon as possible because they still needed him. Vincent was, at that moment, wondering if he had finally done anything worthwhile as a father. Everyone was very happy. A week later, a carriage came to pick up our hero. At the same time, his father was signing a contract, apparently to put our hero in foster care. As soon as he signed it, they snatched it out of his hands and led our hero to the carriage. They were in a big hurry. The carriage closed, and the coachman decided to have a chat. Our hero, with his incredible sense of the environment, could see his parents very sad and crying. He stretched out his hand to them, but he understood that he should not hesitate now, because it was his only chance in life and a double-edged sword. He did not understand if he could hold out for 2 years among the people who had great power. When they arrived in the kingdom of Tormi, they saw that the Owen family was the main family of Krees. The kingdom of Toria is a family of warriors who have produced state swordsmen since antiquity. The former head of the family was a general and a third-rate state swordsman, and the current head of the family, Mr. Owen Bishop, is a fourth-rate state knight. In a word, they could be described as very influential people, holding power over the entire city. Passing by the kingdoms, the coachman even asked our hero to pay attention to the landmark, Mess at Owen, the great straight road. As soon as our hero got out of the carriage, he was asked if he was afraid because many people say that the family is more like monsters. Our hero was asked to walk simply along the path. It seemed to him more and more that now he believed in the reality of what was happening, because all that was in front of him was a family of aristocrats of the second rank. This was the Owen family. Here were both the work and the rooms for the ordinary life of the butlers, as well as the place where our hero would live. When our hero met with the butler that we already know, he wanted to show our hero what was what. As soon as our hero had been brought to the library, he just could not take his eyes off the books. The butler explained to him that all books being there would be moved to the sacred library, and our hero would have to take care of sorting the literature. Every week, our hero would receive a list, and it would be his job to find those books and collect them in one place. Our hero would work from 9:00 a.m. to 6:00 p.m., but he would not be able to leave the estate even after that time. He could not leave the estate without a special order. The butler gave a form to our hero and said that the editor would tell him about the rules of the butlers. But did our hero have any questions? After listening to everything Teen had told him, our hero understood that everything he had gotten now was worth betting his life on. So the only question our hero had was when he could start working. The answer was obvious. He would be working the next day. Our hero had already put on a butler costume, and he knew that books had to be sorted by. The sorting criteria will also have to be the same. For example, if we sort books by the history of the art of wielding the sword, each person will have his or her own way of thinking. Then, each person, in their own way, defines whether to sort this book as professional swordsmanship or into ordinary sorting. Also, in the process of determining the sorting system, our hero learned that all knowledge is connected to each other, and the linking, important part is history. It is on its line that knowledge is accumulated. So, it is history that is the eternity of knowledge. If, after the perfect study of history, we can add it to other areas, then the rate of learning will definitely increase. Of 10,000 books, about 850 of them are about history. Our hero should read them all in 2 years, just to fulfill his dream and become a magician. At one moment, our hero came to his senses and noticed that the deputy chief butler would be coming. He even thought that he could not allow him to see what our hero had been reading, as it had not been said officially. In his turn, Teen said that our hero was a good sorter and asked if our hero was working late again. Our hero was serious, so he stood up immediately and said that it was true. But he did not praise our hero. He told him that he must not allow his condition to worsen, as all responsibility lay on him. But at one moment, our hero noticed that Teen approached him, and he wondered if he had overshadowed the books that our hero read. However, the only thing the butler did was shake the dust off our hero's clothes and said that this library also belonged to the family. So our hero should watch his condition. He was also told that it might lower the nobility of the Owen family. He was asked to do something about his long hair. Our hero trembled the whole time, but he did not give anything away. Our hero understood what they wanted him to do. So he concluded that he would still have to take great care of himself for 2 years. He should also be more careful, because there should be fewer claims against him. Our hero even thought that he should tie his hair up like his father did. But still, there was a bigger problem. Our hero did not understand anything in the book about the 3 empires and 7 kingdoms. He had read that even just one kingdom of Toria was not easy to understand. So how was he supposed to comprehend so much? Did he have to memorize everything at all? But he understood that he should not do that. The only thing he should do was understand every line, because only then could he use this knowledge at any time. Our hero fell asleep reading the books at this rate, but when Teen approached him, he saw a certain mess. He also noticed the book that our hero could not understand for half a month. Teen smiled a little and asked the sleeping hero if he thought that he could succeed with his studies. But if our hero had really mastered those books, he would have forbidden him from entering them outside his working hours. But now he was calm. After all, our hero seemed to him an ordinary fool with huge dreams. But for our hero, the work in the big library of Owen went on. 3 months passed imperceptibly. Our hero kept working, and his sorting began to bring great pleasure. It just became easier. He learned a lot about butler work and also continued to hand out books for record keeping. He even began to talk to the other butlers, even those who did not return the books. He understood that even if only the butlers or the servants were shaken off and bled for the books that were not returned. The most shocking thing was that the aristocrats did not care much about everything in the library. But everything in the library was not so important. However, our hero understood that even so, everything was not in full order. The absence of excitement among the aristocrats was possible only with the support and sincerity of the commoners. Those very commoners who put their lives on the line for what the aristocrats did not even remember. So, our hero must necessarily become incredibly cold, so as not to make even a fraction of a mistake. He understood that life, as if he were absent, would be much better for him. But at that very moment, some black-haired boy burst into the library, shouting that he would not die if he rested today. Our hero knew by the blue hair that it was the youngest son of the head of the Owen clan. Judging by the shouts, he had dared to escape from the training. One could think that it was very bad. He ran up to our hero and told him to lie about seeing him around. An old man with a long beard had also run into the library and was shouting at his student. He asked our hero if a boy with blue hair and the size of a peanut had come running here. Our hero was shocked by the fact that he was the size of a peanut, but he pretended to have no idea where the youngest son was. He asked who the old man was, but the old man answered at once in a hoarse voice that he was a sword master. a master who could split that very peanut with his strike. He also told our hero not to joke, and that it would be better to tell him right away where the youngest son was. Our hero immediately said that the youngest son was under the bookcase, which made the boy very angry. But the master immediately grabbed his shirt and threw him out the door. He really didn't like the fact that this little jerk could give a damn about their training. But still, the trainer should put his mind in order and better teach him a lesson. He dragged him by the legs, but our hero understood that the master had the power of the head of the family, so he did not even have any choice. If we believe the rumor, when the master caught him, no one saw him again for a month. But for our hero, the first time it took him 20 days to read one book, after he had perfectly understood all the books. Then in 4 months he was able to read 82 history books exactly as he expected. He thought that the difficulties arise only from the beginning, because in no book there was anything that our hero did not know. If you create a base, then, of about 20,000 books, the remaining 650 will not have almost any meaning. During the reading of history books, doubts began to rush in the head of our hero. Is mastering history the right choice? However, when he studied the actions of magicians within history, he became more and more sure of the correctness of his choice. If the scientist studies theories, then the magician is the person who materializes this theory into reality. A magician and scientist are equal. However, even at such an outcome, the reason why not all scientists are magicians is that they cannot enter a zone of spirits. In other words, if we add knowledge to our hero's spirit area, then this will be the beginning. Our hero had been pleased because, apparently, he really could become a magician. But the gates of the library opened and the black-haired youngest son entered. He was very angry at our hero. He said that he could stay in that very hell only because he wanted to kill our hero. Our hero could not accept the fact that he was very stubborn, but still, he asked if it was true that he had come because of what had happened. The blue-haired man did not wait for an answer, and immediately said that was why he had come. Did our hero know how much he had suffered? He went up and down the cliff more than once, and when he had no strength left in his hands and thought he would die, he was saved by the fact that he wanted revenge on our hero. Our hero understood that the younger son's anger had really reached its limit, so it was already frightening. The younger son asked our hero if he really thought he was acting this way, just because he had suffered a little. But he was mad because he had asked our hero for a favor and trusted him. But he had blurted it out. It was the first time he had seen such cowards like our hero. While our hero was being pressed, he thought that people having powers often adjusted the situation to be comfortable for them. But the only thing our hero said was to ask what he could do instead. The younger son only smiled and said that that would not be enough as an apology, so he simply asked him to follow him. They came to the parade ground where they practiced with the sword. The younger son said that he would show him how to do it. Our hero was only thinking about how hard he would beat him. Our hero understood that even if he beat him, he would bear it because it would be better than just dying. He could not spoil the chance given to him by his parents, for he had put his life on the line for him. Our hero had been thrown a sword, and his younger son told him that it was a duel, and that now he would show how badly he had been treated. Our hero did not understand why he was called a coward all the time. The younger son was angry because it was our hero who had allowed him to be beaten by the master. He had been able to turn his back on a man in distress. Our hero noticed that his look had changed, and he went on to say that no matter how his family ignored him, he was not one to be put in anything, not even by a man like our hero. So he asked him to attack, and he would consider the difference in strength and would start after 3 blows received. Our hero understood that he was a man of the other clan, but he also understood that the wooden sword they had in their hands was strong, and asked if that was also written in books. Then our hero would have to go home. How would our hero survive? Our hero, however, realized that he would have to use all of the skills he had learned, and he had 3 tries. The first blow of our hero did not pass. He was able to parry the attack. Our hero couldn't understand where it came from. The second blow didn't go through either. So the younger son asked if our hero was holding a sword at all. Our hero didn't care because he was only counting how many blows he had left. But one. Our hero entered the zone of spirits and began to see through his enemy. The younger son could not understand what was wrong with our hero. He was about to attack, but his sword just broke. He could not believe his eyes. Our hero looked at all this and understood that he was able to do it. Our hero had calculated everything because he could feel everything with the first attack. With the second attack, he calculated the time of his opponent, and with the third one, he did what was necessary. That thunderous blow, which he had practiced countless times during 3 years, paid off. The younger son was looking at our hero and could not understand where the hell he learned how to do this. Our hero explained that it was not art, but a thunderbolt. He explained that his father worked in the mountains, and he followed him and simply cut down trees. But since his physical strength was not enough to cut, he learned this technique to make up for his weaknesses among lumberjacks. This is called a thunderbolt. But the young son did not understand how he could just cut down trees and learn it. Himself, after all, holding a sword for 15 years, such a technique is simply impossible to obtain just by cutting down trees. My youngest son's memories came back to us. He remembered that once upon a time, someone else had also been able to do it. When he was 12 years old, they were able to explore the ability of their family. They even realized at that moment that the ability of the second master was too great for his peers. The son named Rai adopted all the genius of his father, and everyone decided to celebrate it. But Rai, all the time, just could not catch up with his brother, which really pissed him off. He was looking at our hero and saw his brother in him. He began to behave aggressively, and our hero did not understand what he had done. Was he tactless? But the younger son asked him to shut up and took his iron sword from its sheath, throwing it to our hero. He said that since their weapons were out of order, the victory was not yet decided. If he learned how to destroy the sword, the younger son should deal with our hero according to his level. He told our hero that they would decide the winner in a month, using real swords. Our hero was holding a sword in his hands, and his hands were shaking because he could really die. He begged the junior master to reconsider because he had not learned anything. But the younger son was adamant. That was why he gave him 1 month. He said that if our hero was so good as to have mastered the technique, he would think of something. He even said that our hero must not run away and must be able to do better than that. Our hero sat in front of his books again, but he was very depressed. He had found out that children of the Oda family have distinctive features, both black and blue hair. The head of the family has black hair. The eldest son with black hair is the state swordsman of the 6th rank. The eldest daughter, with blue hair, is also very capable but chose music instead of a sword. She is now a pianist in the kingdom. The second son, Rai, with black hair, is called the undisputed genius. Unlike the top-ranked black-haired brothers, Ryan was not too capable, even though he had a personal mentor. Everybody knows about it. Our hero was very upset because he understood that he had to put up with all the beatings. And now he had just scratched the pride of a man who had lived his whole life being compared to his brother and others. He thought they were all incredible. He thought that if the problem didn't involve books, he wouldn't have to die. Our hero wanted to feel sad. But he needed to think of something because he should focus on becoming a mage. He had lived in the mountains, so he was confident in his endurance. If he had learned at least a way of protection, he would probably survive. It was, at this point, our hero realized he needed to do all that he could. Meanwhile, Ryan was training and had already completed the 100th lap. The coach was pleased because the record time had been reduced. He even asked if something had happened to make him train so obediently. However, at that moment, Ryan asked, "What is this? Is it training?" He was still standing on his 2 legs, so he asked for something more powerful. The old man thought about it. He knew something had happened, but from the old man's eyes he thought it was because of his elder brother, Rai. But it could not be. The only decision of the old man was to tell Ryan that if he dies, it will not be his fault. What we have before us is the scheme. It was something that Ryan had long studied. It gave the notion that magicians have a spirit zone. It was a scheme that only swordsmen had. Any person has an idea of their physical body, but the scheme can be called an embodiment of its extremity. It is said that due to this, masters of schemes can ideally borrow all the cells of their body. Our hero, after reading this, thought, "Isn't it the exact opposite of the spirit zone? But should he try it?" At first he decided to feel himself, but concluded it would be ineffective to practice the technique scheme, which is the exact opposite of the spirit zone. He even thought about the girl he had met 3 years ago. She also used the scheme, but such a level at such a young age seemed very surprising to him. Even so, our hero thought he should practice a few sword techniques based on the spirit zone. First of all, he started with cutting in 8 directions. Meanwhile, Ryan's training continued. He was very angry because he did not have a scheme. His teacher watched all this with horror. He stopped Ryan's sword and said that was enough training for today. Then, he asked Ryan what he was thinking about. Ryan decided to have a little laugh and said that he felt he would die in his hands. Ryan was asked if he knew that, but he only said he didn't know what he was good at. However, he knew what he was bad at. The teacher said that was why he was not a genius. Ryan was very offended and said that he knew this, so he asked him to stop. But the teacher, with a smile on his face, said that geniuses know what they are geniuses at and what they are good at. In contrast, the efforts of a genius are actions without any doubt, with which they accomplish what they are good at. What the ones like them are really afraid of is the effort to master what they cannot master themselves. It is like a flame of striving to give up what they cannot do. That's what you might call the natural order.